Deputy Leader of the Opposition and Shadow Secretary of State, Angela Rayner.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I just say to the Secretary of State, well done for the level of creativity and imagination in those opening remarks. And in opening this debate on behalf of the opposition today, I want to offer a note of optimism after the miserable vision for this country's future presented by the government. Britain is crying out for lasting change, change that will see the ambition of our young people harnessed, the drive of our businesses rewarded, and the aspiration that exists around every kitchen table fully realised. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, we promise our children and grandchildren that if you work hard, you'll be able to get on no matter what your background. We tell them that with enough graft, everyone has the opportunity to build a good life around what they do best and love most. But opportunity is built on security. So people live without fear that they might be evicted or lose their job for no good reason at all. On the foundation of a decent wage and a secure home. Well, this Prime Minister and his party have taken a sledgehammer to those foundations on which a good life can be built. So people today can no longer be sure that by working hard they will get on and that where they come from won't hold them back. The only certainty is that this government will sit on their hands while working people graft and ministers promise more of the same. Last year, it was the then Home Secretary who led today's debate for the government. This year, she's been dancing away through her party's conference with Nigel Farage. Dancing the right away, you might say. But while the former Home Secretary was dancing with Nigel Farage, it is the current one who is dancing to his tune. This week, she told us her answer to homelessness: take away their tents. And her answer to crime: waste police time arresting charity volunteers for giving the tents out. And then there's the Prime Minister, so weak, he doesn't dare put the proposals to us, but doesn't dare to distance himself from it either. He chooses delay while his cabinet argues behind closed doors. We know who's leading this dance and who's following, Madam Deputy Speaker. And that's the story of this King's speech through and through. Party before country. We needed a King's speech that would draw a line under 13 years of Tory decline. But instead, we have a party so devoid of leadership that they fight. The only fight that's left in them is to fight amongst themselves and argue over headlines. But while cabinet ministers argue over headlines, schools across our country are literally crumbling, with children cowering under steel props to stop the roof from falling in. Is there any clearer example, Madam Deputy Speaker, of a government failing in its basic duties than the constant drip drip of more schools being added to the rack list? Over 2 million children are at risk of regularly missing school by 2025 at the current rate. That's 1 in 4 of all children currently at primary and secondary school. A lost generation of children in England facing a tidal wave of mental ill health, unable to get treatment through the NHS. We waited yesterday for a plan for our children and young people that would see aspiration and ambition for everyone, a plan to prevent a child's background being a barrier to getting on, and a plan to deliver a curriculum that is broad, inclusive and innovative, a plan to get a grip with the epidemic of persistent absence and mend the broken relationship between the schools, families and government, and a plan to enable every child to achieve and thrive. Yet this sorry excuse for a government offers no plan for crumbling buildings, no plan to broaden the narrow, outdated curriculum. No plan for the children missing in classrooms since the pandemic, and no plan for the future.
Will she give way?
I'll happily give way.
I thank the Honourable Lady for giving way. One of the things we didn't hear about from the Education Secretary today is actually that the attainment gap between the wealthiest pupils and the most disadvantaged pupils is growing, as evidenced by the Education Policy Institute and many other experts. We've seen that small group and one-to-one tutoring can be a really effective intervention for those children, yet the National Tutoring Programme, as things stand, is not due to continue beyond this year. Will she join me in calling on the Education Secretary to extend the National Tutoring Programme and fully fund it so that schools can help the most disadvantaged pupils?
I'll do better than that. I call on the Minister and the Prime Minister to call a general election and let Labour take over, and we'll make sure that every child in this country has an opportunity. Instead, Madam Deputy Speaker, children's prospects in Britain are all too often limited by the circumstances of their birth, not opened up by their opportunities in life. Labour, led by my formidable colleague, our Shadow Education Secretary, has a serious plan to boost child development and young school outcomes, as well as expand training routes so more people than ever are on pathways with good prospects by 2035. This starts at school. I think the Secretary of State doesn't understand this. I remember all too well feeling hungry all day at school, unable to focus. I'm proud to say that Labour will introduce breakfast clubs in every primary school. And as my honourable friend announced, Labour will be on the side of children and families. We will boost standards across the schools by reinstating the requirement for qualified teacher status once again, ensuring teaching is a respected and valued profession, and reset relationships with families, schools, teachers and school staff. And Madam Deputy Speaker, Labour will end the tax breaks for private schools to fund that investment in excellent state education for everyone. But the fact is, today, young people are caught in a vicious Tory doom loop, denied the opportunities their parents had, left behind by their government from school to employment, unable to rely on the security of a decent home and a secure job. What the party opposite has successfully built is a boulevard of broken dreams. They've broken their promises to renters, to leaseholders, to house builders and to all those who dream of owning their own home. Like a bad Santa at Christmas, they're doling out broken promises every direction. A broken promise to renters, the ban on no-vote evictions kicked to the long grass in an indefinite delay, blaming the court system they say they themselves have broken, appeasing the vested interests on their benches rather than doing the right thing for the country. A broken promise to leaseholders, not the integrated package of recommendations of enfranchisement, common hold and right to manage proposed by the Law Commission, but more cherry-picking and face-saving from the Secretary of State. A broken promise to house builders. They said they would bring back amended proposals to reform nutrient neutrality rules after their flawed first attempt was rightly rejected by the other place, including many of the Conservative lords. But we stood and we stand ready to agree and reform to build the homes we need while protecting the rivers from pollution. But yesterday, we heard not a word. Not a word. They were never serious, just playing political games. And Madam Deputy Speaker, what about first-time buyers? No targets, no ideas, no ambition. Too weak to take on the blockers in their own party and deliver the change that our country needs. The dream of a safe, secure and affordable home ever further out of reach. Instead of homes, all they've built is a house of cards. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, that is the difference between us. We have a recovery plan for secure homes to build 1.5 million homes across the country with a reformed planning regime that will unlock our potential. This is no time to wait. Let's get Britain building again, with a generation of new towns unlocking growth across Britain with the biggest boost to affordable housing in a generation. Because you can't fix the homelessness without increasing supply of housing, and they can't boost real growth unless workers have the homes they need. We will not duck the difficult issues like the Tories have. We would abolish no-fault evictions and fix the broken leasehold system once and for all. Labour is the only party serious about boosting the supply of new homes to buy to rent and unlocking the dream of a safe and secure and affordable home for all. I'll happily give way.
Thank you very much. So the Labour Party talk about 1.5 million new houses. We talk about 300,000 new houses over the next 5 years. Could you tell me exactly what the difference is?
Well, I think the Honourable Lady needs to see exactly, has the Honourable Lady's government ever delivered on any of their targets on housing? They haven't delivered. I'm sorry, they can pick a number out of the sky. They haven't delivered it. They haven't taken on the blockages in their own party, and that's why we're in this decline, and we don't have the houses we want in our country. But Labour will deliver them, will take on the blockers, and make sure that people do have a home for life. And Madam Deputy Speaker, I sense a déjà vu when I listened to yesterday's speech, because some of it sounded rather familiar. Take the pledge to increase housing supply and home ownership by reforming the planning system. Not from yesterday's speech, but back in 2014, nearly a decade ago. And home ownership rates are lower now than they were when the Tories came to power. Or take this line: my ministers will continue to prioritise measures that reduce the deficit, ensuring interest rates are kept low for homeowners and business. Well, that went well. That was from 2013. Since their disastrous mini-budget, when they crashed the economy, interest rates are through the roof, and mortgage holders are £580 a month worse off in the last year alone. Or take this one: my government will enhance the rights of those who rent. That was back in 2021. And near identical words have been in every single gracious address this Parliament. But the pledge was first made in April 2019 by the then Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Member for Maidenhead. It's now 5 sessions, 4.5 years, and 4 Tory Prime Ministers later. They don't really like anything involving high speed, do they, Madam Deputy Speaker? So perhaps the Levelling Up Minister can at least say later whether he will commit to scrapping Section 21 by next April, 5 years after they pledged to do so. And if they do not have the support from their own benches, I can offer them ours. And if they do not achieve this in their last King's speech, we'll do it in our first. This government has not only failed young people from school to housing, but into employment too. Yesterday's announcements were utterly out of touch when it comes to the basic foundation of decent work. Time and again, in fact 20 times, Madam Deputy Speaker, ministers promised an employment bill that would not only protect workers but also strengthen our broken labour market, boosting productivity, retention and growth. They promised that enhanced rights and protections were just around the corner. It never came. The promise to introduce a single enforcement body, a measure that is backed by businesses and workers alike, gone. The promise to make it easier for fathers to take paternity leave disappeared. And the promise to end cruel practice of fire and rehire up in smoke. Instead, they have done nothing but fail workers, the public, businesses, by doubling down on their failed approach to Britain's broken labour market, leading to the worst strikes in decades. And Madam Deputy Speaker, now they're getting their excuses in early for Christmas. offering another sticking plaster to distract from the Conservatives' track record of failure. We all want minimum standards of service and staffing, but it's ministers opposite who are constantly failing to provide them. I know I'm an Avanti West Coast user. Only Labour can offer the change that Britain needs, with industrial relations fit for a modern economy where issues can be resolved before they escalate, by bringing in a new partnership of cooperation, trade unions, employers and government, meaning issues are resolved before the need for strikes, and learning from other high-growth economies that benefit from more cooperation and less disruption by updating trade union legislation so it's fit for a modern economy. Labour's New Deal is our plan to make work pay and support working people to thrive, tackling insecure work and ensuring good jobs and higher living standards in every part of the country. The next Labour government will present an employment rights bill to Parliament within 100 days of taking office. We will offer a new deal for working people, 0-hour contracts banned, fire and rehire gone, basic rights from day one, and a genuine minimum wage taken into account of the real cost of living that every adult will benefit from, going further and faster in closing the gender pay gap, making work more family-friendly and tackling sexual harassment. But this won't just benefit working people. Our plans will be good for businesses and the economy too. They will help to keep more people in work, improve productivity and put more money in working people's pockets to spend, the absolute route to real growth. This will also benefit businesses, ending the race to the bottom by ensuring that good employers aren't undercut by those who use exploitative employment practices. By levelling up workers' rights, Labour will be starting a race to the top. A future of work that provides opportunity, affords dignity and fuels growth in every part of the country. The public know you laugh at them. They see it all the time. Sorry, Madam Deputy Speaker, I think the bench needs to listen. It would be good for them to understand what it's like for working people in this country after they crashed the economy, sent inflation sky high, record numbers of tax burdened on working people. I really do think they need to listen, because the British people deserve a government that matches their aspirations, a country where families have more money in their pockets with decent pay and good jobs, a country where their children have the opportunity they deserve to thrive, where young people aren't held back by their background, a Britain where no one is written off and no one is left behind. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, the Secretary of State chunters, call a general election and let's test.